And we're going. So we'll jump in. Jim's great to see you.
Same here.
And you are in upstate New York?
Yes, I am. Beautiful upstate New York.
What's the phrase? It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
I've heard that, but I also heard it's the armpit of the universe, but I'm not.
And you are north. You are up
Yeah.
by okay.
Yeah, we're about 11 miles south of the Canadian border. So we're almost Canadian.
Yeah. So is it bacon or is it Canadian bacon? Where you are?
Both, actually. Every diner sells both.
Clearly. So I'm excited to talk to you. You and I know each other. We've known each other for a few years. And you're a poet. You're one of the two, you're 50% of the poets that I've ever met. So you represent 50% of them. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a lot of things about the arts. I'm anxious to talk to you about that, but I want to jump around something.
Okay.
Because you are probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. You are just plainly a nice. I mean, that's next to my cousin Brad. You were probably the nicest guy I've ever met. So I want to talk about that because this whole podcast is about finding things about ourselves and getting better and rewiring. When you're a nice guy, is that natural? Do you come out of the womb and you have blue eyes and you're a nice guy, or is that something? Were you always a nice guy? Because you can't deny that you are.
Um, it was valued in our home. You had to be nice in my home. When I was growing up, I mean, that was right up there with "Thou shalt not kill." You had to be a nice person.
Really?
My grandparents, my father, my mother, they were all very nice people. I remember at my father's funeral, actually at the wake, a priest came up to me and he said, I have never had anybody tell me how so many people tell me that a guy was a nice guy that was at his funeral. And that was in 1987. And no,
that was your grandfather's funeral?
My dad.
Your dad's funeral.
Yeah. So he was a nice guy. He was a strict guy, but he was very nice. He was a real nice man. So I kind of aspired to that, and it hasn't always been sincere. Being nice can be fake pretty easily.
But does that count? If you're still nice, I think it counts.
I don't know. You don't feel like it when you're faking. I'll tell you that.
Because what's funny is if I had said, you're a nice guy, and you'd said, damn right, I'm a nice guy, you're suddenly not a nice guy.
You're right.
But the fact that so the fact that you're a little humble about it, but so a lot has to do with, the way you were brought up and that sort of thing. And I get it. But I'm fascinated with people that are, because I've never seen anyone make the transition. I've never seen anyone going, hey, I met that guy, 10 years ago and he was a bastard and now he's a nice guy. So I'm fascinating. Have you?
Yeah, I think I have.
Really?
I've seen a few people who, not many, a few who were, bastards. That would be the right word. And they had something change in their life. A lot of times, two of them that I can think of, it was their wives helped to change them.
Really?
They took them down a different road. Sometimes that can happen.
Yeah. Probably age sometimes has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Age. Yeah. Children too. Having children can smooth out some of those bastard edges, I think.
So when I write my best-selling how-to book, it's going to be called Bastard Edges.
Hey, that's what
it's going to be called. Bastard Edges, The Road to Being a Nice Guy. That's the title.
That's good.
But I think I've seen some of that where I think but I don't think I've seen as many as you, and where those edges are filed off a little bit.
Well, I'm older than you, Everett, so
You're a
I've seen
couple
more.
years, 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so you've seen more, but I think age has a lot to do with, we're doing a bunch of animation for this thing, and we're getting ready to launch. And I just did a little piece that was really interesting, and it was a whiteboard animation of what my confidence was and what my achievements were at 25, 35, 45, and 55. So at 25, my confidence is off the chart because of all the things that I'm going to do, someday going to do. My achievements, tiny, 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 but it doesn't matter because I'm 25 years old and I will do it. At 35, my confidence went down a little bit. My achievements went up, but my actual confidence went down. But that shouldn't be the way. And this continued at 45. And then at 55, my confidence is like that. And I actually have some achievements. So I think age has something to do with it, because at 25, we think we are the best. I mean, you don't even really have to do anything. You just have to promise to someday do something.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this? Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have seen that for sure. Yeah. Yeah, what do they call it? The confidence of youth. I mean, it's a kind of a cliche, actually. And and if you don't have it, if you don't have that, you kind of overcompensate, and and you can be a real jerk about it, actually.
And you're talking about overcompensating. I want to talk a little bit about this, because it has to do with the arts, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But I'm trying to think, there was something that you just said, but this is what it is. And then I want to come back to this overcompensation thing that you just brought up. What's interesting, though, is if you look at some of the great achievers, if you look at some of these companies that created these enormous things, when you track them down 15, 20 years later, and when they started it when they were 25,
Right.
they'll go, how did I ever think I could have done this?
Yeah.
They did it. And but if they started at 35, they may not have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talk about the overconfidence of youth, but there's an advantage to that overconfidence of youth, because the 35 or the 45-year-old man would go, the odds are not in your favor.
Yes.
But the 25-year-old will go, screw that, let's go.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they do it, and it's because they're in that moment. I think when they're being creative, people, they're in the moment. They're not thinking about failure. They're thinking about right there what's in front of them. So So that's an important thing.
And it's funny too, because we can blame it on youth, but I don't think it goes away. Just yesterday, we've got a film project we're working on, and I've been working on something to present to one of the publishers, and I've been working on this for like 3 days, and I'm going, they are going to go crazy when this is incredible. My phone's gonna ring. This is the best idea ever. And this is 57-year-old Everett that's doing this. This is amazing. So I sent it over to Brian. It's Brian, the producer. He sends me a text and goes, I responded to your email. And the email was, you idiot. This, you'd forgot about this and this and this and this. Why would you think we'd want to go this way? But he did it obviously in a nice way.
Yeah.
But up until when he sent all these things, I'm going, he's absolutely right. but 10 seconds before that, I'm going, this is the greatest idea I've ever had in my life. Yeah. So it's not all youth, right?
No, that's right.
So where does that come from? Where does that come from? When is it just not getting information? Is it just not testing it, or is it the fact that failing is just part of it?
I think that it kind of depends on where you are in life. I mean, when you get to be, let's say, over 55, you realize, you have a realization that you are going to fail, or maybe not fail, but you're going to have to tweak that thing a little bit before it's right, and that comes, I think, with experience, not so much age as experience. You can get experience when you're young. Some young people I know are very experienced. Mm-hmm. They've experienced a lot in their life. They've done a lot. achieved a lot, and they've learned through experience that some failure is going to happen, some adjustments have to happen. So it's a trick, and it's very individual. It's it depends on the individual so much. There's so
Yeah.
much that we're all so different, and
And I think what's interesting that you just brought up that I think I totally agree with you is, at least with me, is the 25-year-old Everett didn't handle failure very well. The 25-year-old Everett would get angry, would get bit. Do you know how much time I spent on this? Whereas the
yeah,
57-year-old Everett goes, you got 3 amazing points that I didn't even think about.
yeah, yeah,
And so I think that's part of it too. Do you agree?
yeah. Oh yeah, and I've learned that
Yeah.
in writing. How many things I've sent off and said, "Oh, this is going to kill him."
Yeah, my phone's they're gonna be ringing off. They're gonna beg me for
Yeah,
this. Right.
and then I get the nice and always and not always nice critique, and it's, oh man, I better get back to the keyboard here.
Okay, so I want to jump off here for a second because this sounds fun. So do you know the not nicest rejection email or letter you've ever gotten? Do
Oh,
you know what it is?
I had one that said no, thank you. That was all they said.
That was it?
That was it.
Okay, that's just rude. That's yeah.
Oh, I've had some rude ones. Yeah. Um, no, I don't remember the exact. I remember the first one, and it was kind of an encouraging. Uh, but you better wait a few years before you send anything else to
Right.
kind of thing. He was very nice, but and those you do tend to forget the rejections. It's funny, I do anyway. I
Yeah.
forget them.
Yep.
I can't spend too much time on them because then I won't ever get back to doing what I should be doing.
I had one years and years ago that came in and it's and it said, hey, we received your submission. It's really, really good. We think there's definite potential here. So give us a call to discuss this because we want to put this out. We really like your book, Blobbity Blue. And I'm going, I didn't write Blobbity Blue. They sent me the wrong letter. That's the worst rejection. Not only am I rejecting you, but this one is not even for you. It's for someone else.
The heartbreak of the form letter.
That's right.
Oh,
I'll never forget that one. So I want to talk a little bit about you. Like I said, you're the second poet that I know. And I can tell you, and I want to talk about this artist ego thing too.
Oh, yeah.
But I can tell you, if I had to figure out the form of why someone wants to be an actor, the good or bad reasons, why someone wants to be a musician, or why someone wants to be a performer or a comedian or a writer, I can do that. Why does someone want to be a poet? I mean, what is it difference? Why do you remember saying, this is my art form, this is what I'm going to pursue?
No, I don't remember that. I remember when I was probably in 7th grade when I decided I wanted to do it.
Really?
And it came and it went. Yeah, I mean, it was, there's been hills and valleys in that. And there were times when I wasn't writing poetry. I was still writing in short stories, but I always kept coming back to poetry. When I was in 7th grade, we had a teacher or a principal, every school assembly, he would recite a poem. He would get up, and it was usually something by Robert Service, The Cremation of Dan McGee, or it could be Tennyson with the Light Brigade poem. But it was I always thought that was just about the coolest thing there was. And because he could captivate a bunch of 7th graders, 8th graders, and just by reciting a poem. And I thought that was wonderful. And so that's when I started writing poetry. And
I wish I had your book in front of me. I bought your book. I read it on vacation. And if I was a prepared podcast guy, I would have it here too. Well, one of my, I think it's the third or fourth one in that you read that I read to my wife, and I just thought it was amazing. And it was just a one-page poem, and it was about, we met, we fell in love, we're going to have a life together, our lives are going to be perfect, we're going to have kids, we're going to have a house, we're going to have all of this, life is good. And then the last one was, I think her name was Kathleen, maybe it was Kenya or something like that. And I'm thinking, that's just a phenomenal poem. And I don't know the first thing about poetry, but that's just a little conversation you have with yourself, just a little moment of life. It's going to go this way and that. I think her name was Kathleen. And I just thought that was genius.
Oh, thank you.
And I know nothing about poetry, but I know what I like. And I did really like that a lot.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, and poetry is about those moments.
Yeah.
Poetry I mean, there are long poems, but if you read a long poem, you'll see that the sections deal with moments almost always. The best poetry to be anyway. I mean, there's a lot of people claiming to be poets, but sometimes that's just teenage angst.
Let's talk about that though, because there's a lot of people claiming to be writers and claiming to be actors and claiming to be, I'm not going to put musicians in this, because musicians, there's some training involved.
Yeah.
But I could call myself a poet tomorrow. I could call myself an actor tomorrow.
Yep.
And so what are those people that claim to be poets? What is that level that you're talking about, that I woke up this morning and now I'm a poet? Is it because, hey, I wrote this funny thing on Facebook that rhymed?
Yeah. There are those, but and you can spot them if you go to a group of, go to a poetry workshop, and there'll be people who are, they're claiming they're poets. But if you ask them if they've ever read poetry or what are you reading?
Yeah.
They've never read poem, or very few. And yet they're out there writing it or reciting it or whatever. So I think the first thing to be a poet is you have to read poetry. And it helps if you do a lot of it before you ever try to get something down on paper.
If you never wrote another word, would you continue to read poetry?
Oh, yes. Yes. I've never stopped reading poetry. And there are poets that I go back to, and then there's so much good new stuff, good poets out there that.
Where does one find the good new stuff? Is it periodicals or?
Yeah, usually in the journals is where you'll first see them. Although online, and there are some great online journals now.
Really?
Oh yeah, and there are good poets coming out of there. Used to be, of course, it was academia. I mean, colleges, that's where it was, and then they were very snobbish about it. They were very it was a big clique, but spread out, and there's a lot of regionalization of poets too. You'll find, for instance, in Delaware, there's a wonderful poetry community in Delaware. You've got great ones down there. You've got Carrie Ebert and Linda Blasky and Sherry Chappelle and Maria Massey. I can just name after name of people who are really dedicated to the art. And then you go up into New England, there's another community. You come up here, it's a pretty small community up here, but there is one. And the St. Lawrence Valley has one. It's
because you have to leave your house and get through all the snow to go read poetry.
Yeah. Well, now we got the internet now, bud. We got the internet. So
most people, I remember there was a time people go, we got cable now. Now you're going, we got the internet now.
Yeah. And the current pandemic has forced us to learn how to use it a little better too. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I think I think the word Zoom now has become a verb.
Yeah.
Where we'll Zoom later about it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So poetry, you kind of fall, you get hooked into it, and it's if you have some kind of that sounds pretentious. Oh, Yeah, it's about inner life, it's about
Yeah.
having an inner life, being a thoughtful person. And that's where what brought me into poetry. It gave you time to examine a moment, and that's what I like about
And those are two great lines, and inner life and examining a moment.
it.
And I remember, and I can't remember if it was something you posted online or I can't, but there was another poem that I read of yours, and it was set in a hotel room. I think it was back when you were doing your sales days.
Yeah.
But I remember there was whiskey in a glass, and you described the whiskey in the glass. And I can't tell you what the poem is, but I can picture in my mind, I can picture that the little bit of whiskey in that glass, and
Yeah.
yeah, so that made it through this brain. That was done well.
Good, good.
So is someone like me that has no experience with poetry, but I do read things that I enjoy. Are there hope for people like me?
Sure there is. Um, yeah, because there is. I like poems that have a story, that tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Some poems go on about all kinds of metaphysical blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
but when you read about, you take a poem that talks about, I remember one by Linda Blasky. It was about kids in cars years back on a dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
And I can picture the whole situation, it was probably only 20 lines, maybe 25 lines. And yet there's a whole story in that
Mm-hmm.
person's youth and how she met somebody and how she was impressed by a car. It yet, that's that's to be able to do that in 25 lines, to tell a story that evokes a picture. I think that's great. And I think then there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of it. And
What's funny is I remember meeting you. I think I met you at the library because I had pickled jalapenos to give you, and you were there, and so I was handing
yeah,
them off, and we sat and talked for a while, and you go, yeah, I'm doing some writing, I'm working on some stuff, and I'm thinking like the snobby, book writer going, 20 lines. Come on, how hard can it? It's 20 lines. I mean, it's a page. But like you said, it's telling that story in that 20 lines
yeah,
and making every word count, probably.
yeah. It's that concise use of language that we're always going after that. How
Right.
quickly we can make that image appear,
Hmm.
and that's good poetry to me, anyway.
How do you because I know the processes, in writing, that I use. I don't know if they're right or wrong. It's just what I use. But how do you write a piece of poetry and then put it away and let it cook and come back to it?
Oh yeah,
If if
years
if
sometimes.
you have something due in a week, do you write it now or do you go get something and flush out?
It There's that mysterious thing called inspiration. Every once in a
Mhm.
while, it kind of just falls. Oh, there it is. There's the poem, and
Right.
it feels right and it looks right. And but more often, I'll take something that I've got hundreds of
Hmm.
lines and scraps of lines, and that I can always go back to, um, and try and build something with them.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, it varies a lot. It varies a lot. I'm right now writing on. I'm trying to do a connected series of poems, um, about women that that's terrible. Let me see, about uh, North Country women, because
Hmm.
they're kind of a different group of people, and older ones, women who have been around a while, and
Hmm.
So I've got a bunch of old stuff that I'm bringing out and using to shape this thing up. But we'll see. It may not get anywhere. It may go back in the drawer and stay there
Yeah.
for a year or two. If I've got
How often does it when you write something, you go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and you put it away and you come back and you go, this is the biggest piece of crap I've ever read.
all the time.
Yeah, and then what about the time where you go back and you find something you wrote a year ago and you go, why didn't I ever do anything with this? This is pretty good.
Same thing happens. Same things. Yeah, and it can be an experience that you've had in between beginning and today. You know, something. Oh, you know, I saw this happen down at the soccer field, and maybe I should go back and take a look at those lines and see what I can if I can fit it into this situation. You know, it's yeah, it jumps all around. I got stuff. I bet I have poems or starts of poems that are 40 years old.
Really?
So, yeah, on pieces of paper. Now I can save them on these machines that we have, but back then it was put it on a piece of paper somewhere. Notebooks. I got a stack of notebooks.
Do you remember the first poem you ever wrote?
Oh, I remember the first poem I ever got published was in high school in the high school literary magazine, and it was kind of pretentious and kind of a political poem. I mean, that was 1963. So things were going on, things were starting up in Vietnam and so forth. And it was kind of about that. You know, yeah, I was pretty proud of that. Not so much anymore.
Isn't it amazing the things, that we're proud of in our youth as far as writing and this sort of thing. So I want to get, and I'm, because you're such a nice guy, this might be hard for you, but I want to get a little mean here for a second, because you spend a lot more time in the arts world than I do. You probably go to a lot more of these events than I do, but I'm fascinated with, because I want to talk to you about that art. I mean, you just use the word pretentious. You know, I see this all the time. I mean, here's a perfect example. I think I told this to you when we were having coffee one time. I do some writing events, and there'll be questions afterwards, and I can write down the questions that I'll get asked if I do a writing event. It'll be, how do I get an agent? How do I get a publisher? What's the amount I need for my first advance? Those are I know you're going to get asked that, right?
Yeah.
I did a thing. 33 Cecils was taught in prisons.
Yeah.
And it was taught, I remember telling you this, and it was taught to teach inmates how to write.
Yep.
And then they did an open forum where they got to ask me questions, and their questions were, let me read this paragraph to you. How can I make it better?
Yeah.
Hey, let me read this to you. What's wrong with it? Hey, this is how I write. Is there anything part of my habit that I can change? Night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in the Oxnard library here is going to ask any of those questions. They want to know, how much do I get? You've got to see that, correct?
Oh, sure. You do. You see that at workshops, you see it at readings, you see it with, with visual artists. You see painters who really think they're doing some beautiful work, and it's kind of ugly, you know, and they don't. It's almost as if they don't understand how bad. Well, they don't understand how bad it is, because they've never spent a lot of time either reading. You know, if you read enough, you're going to figure out what good writing looks like, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. And with an artist, maybe they can't tell you their favorite paintings or their favorite thing. They just.
No, but you have to trust on you have to build on what was there before, you know?
Yeah.
You have to go, you have to understand what came before you as you build what you're going to do. You can't just come out, let's say an actor, you don't walk up on stage and be, Peter O'Toole or somebody. It just doesn't happen. you have to know that you got to build these things. They don't
Mhm.
just happen. And yeah, there's a lot of poets that well, their ego is bigger than they're doing, you know.
So that's what I want to drill into. I want to drill into the fact that, and it's so easy with the arts, and it's probably with other areas too. But if I tell you I'm a dentist, I have to have gone to dentistry school. I
Right.
have to have passed. There's certain things.
Right.
I can tell you I'm an actor, and I don't have to have done anything.
Yep.
So are these egocentric people that this is just easy to claim, or does the term actor or writer or poet or comedian draw these people, or is it both?
It's both. Yeah, there are people who look how easy it looks to be an actor.
Right.
Look how easy it looks to write a poem. Oh, that's easy. I could knock off, you know,
It's
roses.
only 20 pages, only 20 lines.
Yeah, nothing to it. Even book write, you know, even people who write novels, but they learn pretty quick after about 3 chapters that it's not as easy as it looks. And I've been down that road too. But certain arts you can claim because they're the definition of them. The definition of good art is kind of vague, you know.
Right.
You know,
My mom liked it. Yeah. Still there? Did I lose you?
So it's easy to go in and claim something. You're frozen. Oh, there you are, back again.
Okay. Yeah, you froze too. We can fix that.
Your internet connection is unstable, says on my screen.
That's upstate New York for you. Unstable.
It is. It's usually pretty good this time of day, though. Well, okay. So anyway, yeah, you've got. So it's easy to claim. It's easy to claim to be an artist. It's easy to claim to be an actor. And like you said, not a musician. Musicians their chops come out pretty quick, you know.
They've got to. I mean, I've seen musicians with egos, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you have to have a little more skin in the game.
Yeah.
You can't just go. I mean, I can go buy a laptop and call myself a novelist.
Yep. That's right.
I can't buy a piano and call myself a pianist.
No.
But I can but I can do that. I tell you, the thing that's really interesting is, and I'm gonna be mean right now, but with your niceness and my meanness, it'll even out.
Balance.
I had 2 books published in the early 90s before self-publishing.
Right.
And when I would tell people, hey, I had a book published, they'd go, what?
Yeah.
And now with self-publishing, you tell people you had a book published and they go, oh, that's nice. Hey, do you know where Phil is? I mean, no one knows what that means.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, for the traditional publishing guy like me, it's kind of like part of my 30-40 year quest has been stolen. There's a little bit, because I had to go through. Here's a perfect example of this is, I see a lot of people online that I'm friends with on social media that are writers, and they'll have something on Word that'll say 80,000 words. You're writing this, you know, oh, I'm 75% to being done with my novel.
Yeah.
Because you're 75% done of 80,000 words. And then they'll go, almost done. And then boom, done. Go, what? What? But there's so many people. As soon as I'm at 80,000 words, print.
Yeah, right.
Well, as soon as a traditional guy gets 80,000 words, that's when it starts.
That's right. That's right.
Now you got a couple of years of
Yep.
So how do you respond? Is it, I don't want to go through life carrying a resentment towards these people.
Right.
And I don't want to separate it, and I want to help where I can. So how does it, what's the advice of the more seasoned sage?
Oh man. Well, in poetry, you can self-publish very easily. I mean,
Sure.
If you've got a few bucks, you can do it pretty easily. Um, I always tell people to send stuff to journals. I think because there you'll learn about, you'll learn if you've got poetry that's interesting to other poets. And
Okay.
if you get that, then you can maybe, well, although that's no test anymore either. But anyway, it's um, my advice is just, it always comes back to the same thing. Um, have you read anything lately? That's probably the first question that I ask.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I know that it seems that in itself is probably a little pretentious because not everybody is interested in reading. I just saw something this morning that 73% of high school graduates never read another thing when they get out of
Right.
high school. And that's
Right.
awful sad. That's so sad. And when it comes to poetry, you've read that poem in high school and you'd never read another poem in your life. And that's probably about 90% of the people, maybe more, you know.
Yeah.
So poetry is kind of a different game altogether. You you can't be in it for commercial gain. There is no commercial gain in poetry.
Mhm.
There are a handful of poets who have sold more than 30,000 books. There's a handful.
Now that's interesting too, because there's no commercial gain in poetry, but yet there's thousands and millions of people that want to be poets. Now, if you think about the people that you know that want to be rock stars or singers, I'm going to take musicians out, but I'm going to put singers in there because I can
Yeah,
call myself a singer tomorrow. So, singers, movie stars,
yeah,
writers. Think about the people who want to be leather crafters,
yeah, right.
potters,
Yeah, you said,
puppeteers. There's not
yep,
very many, but yet there's tons and tons and tons of people that want to be poets.
yeah, yeah.
And why is that? Because poetry doesn't have the payoff of screaming stage and fame and money.
No, it
Why?
doesn't.
Why is it? Because it's easy to claim that you can do it.
Yeah, it's easy to claim, but it's also a matter of we have an inner urge to self-express. We want to have some form of expression, some form of outlet of our feelings, you know, and poetry offers that.
Hmm.
Um, it's girls like it if you're a guy, girls like it, you know. It's a sign of sensitivity.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so there's that, but and poetry has a certain romanticism. Um, Plus, it gives you a political. You can have a political voice in poetry. You
Hmm.
can be. There's tons of right now. Oh my God, there are tons of protest poetry out there, all kinds.
Really.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you can make political statements. You can tell a poem at a funeral. You can
Mm.
be the family guy who gets up and talks about his grandfather, what a great guy he was in poetry, in verse. You can do that. So poetry it's a very self-expressive and it's private. It can be either private or public, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of appeal to it. Um,
I'm going to ask a question to an old white guy to an old white guy, but is rap poetry?
yeah, it can be, sure, sure. Um, when it focuses on the word and doesn't get totally repetitious, sure,
Hmm.
sure. Heck, in poetry we call it spoken word.
Hmm.
And in the state of Delaware, the twin poets up in Wilmington have been the poet laureates for a
Mm.
couple of years now. They're they're pretty good. They can they're issue oriented, so they their poetry, spoken word. I don't know much if they've actually written much,
Hmm.
and collected it into a book, but they've been very good at getting it out to the people. Um,
Now, what does that mean, poet laureate? You hear that
it's
bannered
an
about, but I don't know what that means.
it's an honorary thing that the government likes to do every now and then for a poet. They like to have kind of gives the governor a little prestige, a little cultural prestige, maybe.
Gotcha.
He appoints a poet laureate. And I'm the self-appointed poet laureate of Dickinson Center, New York. So
Nice.
and
I'm the self-appointed Nobel Peace Prize winner of
there you
Shadow
go.
Court.
But so poet laureates is an honorary thing, and usually it's given to someone with some experience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's political, but yeah, it's okay.
Have you ever gone to any of the, I know Carrie, you mentioned Carrie, and I think Carrie's been to a couple of them, these poetry retreats? I mean, I've never been to a writer's retreat. I don't know how different they are. Have you ever gone to one of those?
Yeah, I have. I've been to a couple, and they can be useful. You share ideas, you spend a lot of time writing, and it forces you into a situation where you're with other writers, other poets, and you get to focus. It's a matter of, it's kind of like a religious retreat in a sense, where your focus is well directed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you share what you've been doing, and you get good feedback. A lot of times you get very good feedback. It's kind of fun.
So yeah, and that feedback is great. I mean, you know, if you're Tara Tomsic, who's the editor-in-chief of Blind Square Books, we talk almost every day, and she has some phenomenal stories about people sending in novels, and she's very, very particular. And there was one where she looked at it and she said, I really like this. It needs work, but I'm willing to take it on if you're willing to work with me. But we need to fix this one plot point.
Yeah.
We need to together fix this because it doesn't work. And the author said, no, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is that? Is it just, I don't want to get good at it. I just want to be good. And if you don't give me that good stamp, I'll go find someone who will. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's ego. Usually that's an ego thing. To be, or although so once in a while you can be convinced, and that second opinion, that opinion of the editor, feels wrong to you as a writer. So you say, no,
because you've spent so much time being absolutely convinced.
This guy doesn't, or this woman doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. And if you talk about it with that person, if there's a dialogue, and you still can't find a common ground, then it's better if you do go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to listen to somebody who is more experienced, who sees tons and tons of manuscripts, then you probably shouldn't be submitting a novel to anybody. You know?
Yeah, and that's the funny part about it, because when we were getting 33 Cecils ready for publication, and Tara and I spent time going back and different editors back, every time that she or one of the other editors caught like a continuity error,
Right.
I would get like giddy.
Yeah.
I would get excited. That's great. I missed that. I said it was a Tuesday, but the calendar actually says it's a Thursday. And I would get excited because we're getting closer to making this good.
Right.
But yet there's a lot of writers out there and musicians and singers and everything that would take that as an affront.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's,
just let it. Why is that?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, I believe it's ego. I think that's where misplaced self-confidence comes into, you know, where
it's another great phrase. You've got like 3 great phrases you've said.
Hey,
misplaced self-confidence.
You know,
yeah.
No, you really can't. You've got to accept. A little humility goes a long way when it comes to writing. And writing is, you're doing it all alone. I mean, and when you finally get to that stage where you've got an editor looking at your stuff and there's a dialogue, I think that's just wonderful. I think there's, you're going to learn something. You're just going to learn.
Right.
And people you knew kids when you were in school who had no interest in learning anything. Well,
right.
They grew up and they wrote a book. Now they're still not interested in learning anything. So
yeah,
it's very interesting that.
Well, I
human.
can tell too when I meet someone and they go, I'm a writer, I've written, 26 books. I'm
Yeah.
going, really? You've
Yeah.
really written 26 books? Um, and I can tell, and this is the meanness. I'll be the mean writer, you be the nice writer. I sometimes within the first, I can definitely tell on social media when someone is talking about
Yeah.
something. But usually if I ever meet someone at one of these events, I can tell from a writer perspective in the first sentence
Yeah.
what what's going on. Do you must see that more than me?
Oh yeah, you see that all the time. Oh yeah, I met a guy at an art show. I'm a screenwriter. Oh, where could I see some of your work?
Right.
And he says, well, I've got it on YouTube. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting.
Right.
So you go and you look at it, then, well, maybe he isn't a screenwriter.
Right.
So,
And I did the exact same thing. I was cleaning out some boxes in our basement not too long ago, and I found out my wife and my engagement announcement.
oh, yeah.
And in the engagement announcement, it said, where my wife worked and everything. And then it said I worked in purchasing, at a local manufacturing facility, and I was a freelance writer. And I looked at the date and I'm going, I hadn't written a flippin' word. I hadn't written, not only had I not published anything, I hadn't written anything, but yet the 28-year-old Everett said he was a freelance writer. So it's easy for us old guys to sit here and be pompous at these things, but I did it too.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I think there's some merit in doing it. I think there's some merit in saying, I am a writer before you've written. If you are willing to go through and get your teeth kicked in
Yeah.
and learn the lessons. My fear is that there's a generation coming out that claims it, rejects any help, and just wants the prize. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah. I do see that. I see the young, and not always young, but people who suddenly, uh, oh, they're getting close to retirement. So they say, oh, well, I'm going to write poetry now.
Right.
That's my new gig. And they're not, they haven't done, they haven't read, they haven't studied it. They don't really know what they're doing. And, but they'll come right up to you and say, oh yeah, I'm a poet. I'm a poet. And in young people, yeah, boy, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Is it because it's so easy to write something on a blog post and call
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, before you had to, if 70s and 80s and even 90s, to say you were published meant you had to get someone to buy it.
That's right.
But now I can say it's published because I hit post.
Yep. Post publish. It even says on some blog publish,
Publish. Right. Yeah.
Okay. I just got
Yeah. I'm
published.
published.
Oh man. But yeah, when I was a kid, I said, yeah, I'm a poet. I'm a poet. And then after I was in the service, I realized I wasn't very good at it. And then I stopped claiming it. And when I started really writing again in my 50s, actually, I was back in my 50s when I started doing poetry. I was afraid to claim it. I was afraid to claim I was a poet. And I actually ended
Because
up
you didn't
going
deserve it?
to, yeah, I went because I didn't want to be a schmuck,
Yeah.
And so when I started going to little poetry things, and then said, well, maybe I'm getting closer here. And then I'd go back and with some new stuff that I've worked on. And finally, I was able to say, yeah, I think I can do this. I'm a poet now. And then I learned I wasn't. And then it took a long time. It took me about, man, probably 6, 7 years before I actually sent something out to a journal.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't feel it was good enough. And then I didn't win a contest. I came in second in a national contest, and got to go to New Orleans and hang out with real poets. So,
Really?
yeah. It was called the Faulkner Wisdom Poetry Competition, out of New Orleans, and I came in second. And the winner was the head of the English department at Tulane University. And I said, wow, maybe I am a poet after all.
Yes.
So that built my confidence up a little bit. And
but at the same time, you are one of the most humble guys I've ever met. You enjoy what you do, but you're very humble. I mean, some of the people that we're talking about, they would have that printed on their shirt.
yeah.
The guy that beat me was a professor at Tulane. I mean, that would be on the back of their shirt. But you got to dig these stories out. So what does this have to do with your personality, or does this have to do with the type of writer that wants to get better, or is it both, or is it neither?
It's probably both, but I think more, I wanted to make something valuable, I wanted to write something valuable. And you don't do that just by going on the internet and hitting publish buttons,
Right.
You can't do that. And so, yeah, I was in some competitions, which that helped a little bit. And then I got accepted in a couple journals, and finally I got a little chapbook published. That was only 5 years ago, and I'm 73 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're just starting.
And now I've got a full collection out. So and both of those were from, real publishers, not who, what's that one, Lulu or something?
Oh yeah.
Some of those self-publishing places.
Yeah. And I'm so bad about that. And this must be an insecurity on my part. When I see someone or come across something on, oh, my book is out, at the first, I'm Googling it. Because I can tell you right away. And that's, I feel bad because it's so much wasted time, because I'm doing it just so that I can say, hey, I went through 4 years of editing, and I went through all of this, and I wrote this thing 7 times, and it was edited 20. But why do I need that? I shouldn't even, I should be able to say congratulations, but not me. I'm going, aha, you published it yourself. Yeah. Why is that? How can I get over that?
I don't know. And I have come across some really good self-published work. I have, not so much in the novel writing. I've seen a very few in novels, but in poetry, I have seen some good self-published poetry, but I do the same thing, Everett. I wouldn't.
Do you? I feel better. So all I need to do is get more friends that are as evil as I am, and I don't have to better myself. This is perfect. That's all I need to do.
Yeah, you say, looking at the labels, looking at the title page. Oh, yeah.
I do it all the time, and I'll see someone, and it's usually the person on like social media that has paid for the ad,
right.
Yep. And I can tell where I'm going. I'm not even gonna, but I'm still gonna do it. Aha. You're Bill Smith, and it's Bill Smith Publishing. Or my favorite thing is my novel just came out, and I'll do that. Bill Smith Publishing. Oh, it's 87 words. Or, I'm sorry, 87 pages. 87 pages?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's
I mean, because not to be being a total jerk, do you know the minimum page number to Amazon to call it a book? Do you know what this is?
No, I haven't. I don't even know that.
So you could write a book today for 2,500 words. That's 6 pages.
Holy smokes!
So if you wrote 6 pages and hit publish, and I'm sounding like a totally evil person here, but you got me going. It's all your fault being so nice. Yeah, I mean, in theory, you can. There's your book. There's your 6-page book. And Amazon will show it. You can get the cover, and you can do everything. I published my book, and I've got to let that go. Because I do it. It's all right. Here's my analogy, and this is an evil analogy, and I'll need your help to stop. This is my analogy, and you're gonna help me let this go. Okay. My analogy of publishing and self-publishing, and here's the definition. So let's say you're in high school and you apply for college, right? You apply for many colleges. Let's say 2 turn you down and 1 says yes. You go to that college, you go to your first class. You finish your first class, and you pass it. You go to your second class. You finish that and you pass it. You're on your 4th year and you have to write your final paper. You go to your professor, you say, this is what I want. He tweaks a few things. He says, do it on this, on this length, and you these resources. You do your paper, you come back, he grades your paper, you pass. You get your degree, you put your degree on your wall. That's publishing. Here's self-publishing. You don't apply to colleges. You don't go to classes. You write your final paper, any length or topic you want. You grade it an A+, and you print a diploma and put it on your wall.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
I need to say, so what? So what? But
yeah.
it's so important in my fragile writer brain that I go, nope, you're not on the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got to let that go.
You let's look at it. That author who did that, he or she is maybe they're maybe it's a self-exploration. Maybe they're trying to say something and they've sent it out maybe a little bit and nobody's listening. And finally they get to the point, I really want somebody to have a chance to listen to what I'm saying. And so I'm going to self-publish it.
Yeah, and even though I can't go on the busy street corner and scream my message, I can go out in the desert, but maybe somebody will be walking by.
Yeah, something like that.
I get
maybe
it.
That's it. Or maybe it's somebody who didn't get the message too, that their stuff is really not very good. They never got the message.
But see, you're so cavalier about it. You're so great about it. I take it as an affront, and I'm going, who the heck am I? Am I the god of writing? Who am I? But I gotta stop that because it's a waste of time. I get, and when I do it, I get a tiny little bit of self-satisfaction, and I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
So I gotta go cold turkey.
Just so you got to kind of try and see him as more as a human,
Yeah.
As a kind of damaged friend. Look at him as a damaged friend. And you'd be nicer to him.
I gotta do that. I'm gonna start as from my undamaged friend to I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna from this conversation, I'm gonna let that go because it's so silly. Because I honestly, when you do it, you go, oh, you called you, because here's another phrase I really like is I'm a what is it? Best-selling Amazon author.
Oh.
You can do that. That's so easy to do. Or just saying I'm a best-selling author. Yeah. Or I love to be, and then some people just say I'm an award-winning author, and then you go into the bio and go, where?
Yeah,
was it cleanliness? Right. Was it showing up? You get the award for going on time? Where is this award? So, but I'm getting all my negativity out on this recording.
That's good.
And next time I see you, I will be zen. I will never talk of this again because of your input and guidance.
Oh, good. Where do I send the bill?
I was just going to say, because the next time I talk, you won't be recorded, so I can say anything I want. But this one is going to be.
That's good.
So wrapping things up,
yep.
If what would you change? What would you change about your life if you could change?
That's an interesting question. I used to think about that a lot. I used to think, oh, if I hadn't done this job change when I did it, or if I had, but the older I get, the fewer regrets I have.
Yeah.
And I think of all the people that I wouldn't have met if I didn't follow the rather zigzag path that we followed. And so I don't really worry about that much. I used to. I threw away opportunities to build a really nice retirement and do all kinds. I just threw them away. And
Yeah.
just because something else looked more interesting, or I got tired of, I left banking because I didn't like going after and repossessing cars. I left a, a good job in a factory. I left that because I don't even know why I left that one. That I just got tired of it. It was a routine. I didn't like the routine.
Yeah.
So no, I don't worry about that anymore. I give up on that. It's another.
You reminded me of something I watched recently. It was a YouTube, and I've got to go find it. I saw it real quick, but it really didn't hit until after I'd seen it. And it was this guy, and he goes around Skid Row in Los Angeles, and he just interviews homeless people. And it's uncut, it's unedited, it's just the real story. And there was just one guy, a young guy, and he was there, and he was just talking about his life. He didn't have a family. His wife, he was married, but his wife had some serious medical issues. And he was just talking about all the, how hard it is on the streets. But here's the thing at the end, the guy with the camera, and again, he didn't edit this. This was just pure conversation. At the end, he said, if I gave you 3 wishes, what would those 3 wishes be? And the guy thought about it, and he had to process it for a couple minutes. You're just giving me these 3. Yeah, you got 3 wishes. What are you going to do? Well, the first wish was, he goes, I wish my wife wasn't in pain and was healthy. Number 1. And he goes, and the second wish, I wish we had family. And then, and I'm getting teary saying what the third wish was. He goes, you can have the third wish.
Oh, wow.
I'm going, this guy has nothing. And he just I have family. I have a wife that's healthy. Well, I have those things, but I wouldn't give my third wish away.
No.
And this guy did.
No. Yeah. That's pretty good. That's really good.
I gotta find that so I can give whoever did that credit, because I think about it all the time. It's incredible.
I'd love to see that.
Because I'm an overweight middle-aged guy, and I'm not giving you my third wish. I got 3. You better believe it. It may take me a while, but I'm not giving you my third wish. This guy.
Yeah. That's really good. Really good.
Well, Jim, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. You are one of my favorite people, and I just I appreciate you doing this. And
my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah.
When we post it, and
we'll be down your way sometime soon, I hope, and I'll
let me know.
Yeah,
we'll put some masks on and go get coffee.
And let me know when this thing comes along so I can scope it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're hoping to dump everything next week. So I'll keep you posted.
Very good. Thanks, Everett.
Well, thank you for everything. Thanks, Jim. We'll be in touch.
We'll see you now.